What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of BS for Build, the only show where we ask the tough questions. Like, was my car hit by a tsunami? Was my car hit by a radioactive tsunami?
There's been criticism even.
What does radiation look like? So this car has what I would call a fair to low amount of corrosion and interesting surface rust floating around it. It also comes from Fukushima, Japan, where they had a tsunami, and following that they had a failed nuclear reactor. And that's all I know about history. Given that this car had a lot more soggy bits than any other build I've ever had, the question definitely started getting spread around, is this a flood car? And then I started thinking, did the car get hit by a tsunami? Is this radiation or just weird dust? Well, although it would be a really interesting story if this car was hit by a tsunami, I can tell you that it was not. And it definitely does not have radiation. To my knowledge, the radiation zone was quarantined after the nuclear meltdown. And this car was registered in 2011, again re-registered in 2013, and then again re-registered in 2015. And that was background check done by Trevor at JDM Buyer, the sponsor of this build, before he said, hey Chris, I think this is a car you should get. So, although I didn't think about those things, people smarter than me did, and they had my back. So that's why you use a service like JDM Buyer. You know, they're not gonna sell you cars that got hit by tidal waves. Pretty great. So, sorry to disappoint, but this was not a flood car. Let me go through and explain some of the things that I did find out and kind of why they are the way they are though. Starting off with the really odd stuff, this dust in the vents that looks like metal shavings, I have no idea what that is. The water that is built up in here definitely never came from Japan. Now the windows were down the entire time on this build. They were covered by Trevor when it was getting imported. I may have had them uncovered for a day or two, and what must have happened though is my covering, that's what all this vinyl was, is the vinyl. I threw the vinyl wrap over the top of the car, down the window and down the door, and it must not have done good enough, and that's what let some of this water in here to be waterlogged. That's just some good old-fashioned Oregon water. You know, there's no way that this thing went across the Pacific Ocean in the middle of summer getting shipped here and didn't dry itself out, especially with the windows down. It would have dried out. There's no way it would have been that much water. So the water, that's my bad. The funky looking white powder in your car never has a great backstory either. This was fire extinguisher dust. A commenter on Instagram was like, yeah, dude, that's fire extinguisher dust. Of course. Center console catches on fire, fire extinguisher dust everywhere. The stuff that we thought was like a lot of corrosion on the ECU, that was just a bunch of fire extinguisher dust covering up the ECU. Again, wet over here because this window is down and I'm guilty, I just let that one sit. So it got a lot more water over here. And that's about it. Now why the rest of the electrical doesn't work, I have no idea. And that's what we're gonna jump into today. So right now as it sits, the headlights now work, or at least they're flipping up and are sending power through the bulb. I haven't tested any of the front blinkers. The rear blinkers stopped blinking, but the tail lights are always on. That is most likely the transmission wiring harness failure. Door windows, non-operable. Dashboard, not operable. I think the stereo is operable. And that's pretty much all the electric stuff that I know of in this car. So that's what I'm heading after. To get started, I think I'm gonna go ahead and start disassembling this area right here, because what I wanna do is get those old bad wires from the transmission harness out of there one way or another, because I believe they are shorted, and that's why the brake lights are on, because it thinks that it's probably in some, I don't know, it's got I believe it's got some sort of a short that's causing that. So I'm gonna attack that, pull it apart, see what I can do. Quick break to show you guys the intensity of the fire damage, but also just really how lucky it came out too. So this is the fire damage. I believe the source of the fire was right around here, and it melted some wires. It melted some wires underneath, and it got some stuff up here. But really, all in all, like the plastic trim goes down here over this charred area, over this charred area as well. The shifter boot clearly needs to be replaced, but everything here looks like it can kind of be fixed up. So my strategy is I'm going to trim any burnt carpet. So I'm going to trim up this carpet right down here. I'll trim that stuff off here, trim this stuff up off here, clean this up, take this shifter boot off, kind of get that all out, shop vac it out, and try and give it a good brush down. Try and get all the fire extinguisher dust off that I can. I'm labeling wires, and we can see if anything needs to be replaced. Right now they look like the electrical taping got a little crispy, but they still look okay. So overall, I mean, it sucks that there's a fire in the car, but it's probably the reason that I got the car, and it's a very fixable issue, so that's actually a bonus. This is going to be the stopping point for the shifter boot because I don't have a respirator. I would get the wire wheel in here and start cleaning all this out, but I don't have a respirator. So I went ahead and sprayed some anti-mold stuff in there. It actually smells more like rat piss, so that'll hopefully disinfect and clean that area up. We're gonna have a hell of a carpet cleaning job to do in here. So that's done. Now we needed to replace some boots, and they weren't cheap. So this one is 27 bucks. This little 3-bolter here that goes up to here, that's totally melted apart down in the base here, so it won't do its job. It keeps the dust out of the actual shifter bearing and stuff inside there. And then there's a larger one that connects to these 4 bolts coming through the frame, and that was 70 bucks. So I got both of those on the way. They are ordered and they will be here. So once I get a respirator, it's just in the truck right now, and the truck is back home. So once I get the respirator, I will go ahead and cut this bad carpet off and wire wheel this whole area. Probably throw a layer of red paint on top of it too. Make sure we don't get any more rust or corrosion, and that'll clean that all up. Also wire wheel all this stuff up too. So the next thing I'm gonna go ahead and do is try and disassemble this panel. Hopefully it'll just come out without too much of a problem. This panel right here, and I'd like to get the dash panel out too. All right, the dash is out. That's an aftermarket dash, I believe, and I didn't want it anymore, so I immediately ordered a new one, which I think is here. I accidentally crushed this part right here. I broke it. I had fair warning that that might happen, so I hope my new one has that on there. The only hot wired piece that I saw that was related to this area, now I haven't dove underneath yet, was inside the main dash harness. There was a hot and a ground teed off of here that were going to the dash panel itself and a dimmer switch down there. So I've removed both of those, taped it back up nicely, and that's that. Now I'm ready to start testing these things and go into that, but I forgot to jump underneath and trim the transmission harness. Now I thought I was gonna be able to get it from up top, but I can't really reach it from up top, so gotta jump down underneath and see if I can trim that transmission harness. I just don't wanna have, if it's shorted out, which I think it is, I don't wanna have it continuously being shorted out while I'm trying to test other electrical stuff. So I'm gonna do my best to get under there and get that taken care of. Okay, I am back from down under. I gotta say, burn, bad situation, but man, everything kind of came out so lucky on what happened with that burn. The middle of a lot of those wires are burned, which means that even if we can't find something at Mark's house tomorrow to replace those wires, basically what happens is this is actually pretty far back. Up there is some burn stuff. So I don't know if the wire fire started there and crawled up or if it started here and went down, but it's just the middle of the wires. So I could probably string those wires back. They start to run back this way through the car, so I could probably string the wires out, get them into here, cut off all the bad part, and rewire them with good stuff. The plugs are all still there and they're all fine. That's like a major thing. So man, it's like a really lucky bad situation. So that's that. Now the next thing I'm gonna go ahead and do is reconnect the battery. So the wires are disconnected, but they may still actually get power sent to them. So we'll see how that responds. Next thing I'm gonna go ahead and do though is connect the battery up and start testing around with a multimeter on things like, these are the 2 powers for the dash, these two right here. The powers for the dash, I'm gonna check those out. Cigarette lighter, I'm gonna be looking for that to get power. Checking all the fuses and everything. Just poking around at things and seeing what we can do as far as if power's trying to even come to the console. Well, believe it or not, this mess of taking things apart and de-hot wiring things has made a great improvement. I don't know if you can notice, but there's glass in there now, and there's glass over there now too. Windows now go up and down. The power to the dash has been restored. Things are really, the windshield wiper is working, the tailgate wiper is working. It's pretty much looking like we got an interior again. The power to the stereo is there. By the way, I would like a new stereo. If any of the stereo providers that always email me all the time would like to send me a stereo for this thing, I would happily install it. We could use something with some, you know, less years under its belt. And so what else? So we just fixed a ton of things. Now here's what I'm seeing that's still wrong. Blinkers are not functioning. The tail lights are just on right now. I think some of that is related to the what's called the flasher CPU that's underneath there that I'm going to take a look at next, and some of it is probably related to the wiring issue down there. I think the taillights has to do with the crispified wires down there. But man, this is awesome. Like, such a big improvement. I fully expect that dashboard to go in and work now because we have power to the dash now and everything else seems good. So I can't see why a new dashboard wouldn't work. Yeah, man, how awesome is that? Let's, you know what? Oh, I kind of want to clean everything before I reinstall the dash, but maybe I can like do a temporary install of the dash. Yeah, let's try that. I'm gonna do a temp install of the dash just to verify it's working. Well, it's not gonna exactly be the slam dunk I wanted it to be. When I connected up the dash, the car started acting like it used to act. The windows wouldn't work, different things weren't operating as I expected. And then when I took it back out again, all of a sudden the windows started working and everything started fixing itself. So I think that's a pretty good sign that there's some hacked up wiring probably behind there that connects to the dash, and when those things are all making the proper connections, it's affecting the rest of the car. I'm thinking that this is aftermarket. Mark and I had talked about that. It looks aftermarket, and it doesn't look like the previous owner installed it. It was probably professionally installed. This looks like a lot better work than what he normally does. So I'm going to start hunting around down here and see what I can find, if I can find like an aftermarket car alarm or something like that, and see what I can do there. Well, I think I'm getting pretty close to finding out the culprit. I think it is an alarm system. I found this guy hanging out inside the car. Now this is like a kind of like a bypass, a massive like splicer thing. The OEM plug went into the back of this, and then this thing went into the flasher CPU, which is right, it's hard to show you guys, but it's right back there, somewhere around there. So I took the OEM plug out of the back of this and plugged it into the flasher CPU, and more things started working correctly. You can see this bundle of wires. It looks aftermarket, and it starts to pick up some other wires. So it picks up the yellow one right back there, somewhere near the door wire, which might be why the door windows don't work. It picks up a green one further up there, and picks up some other ones, and then it goes running that way. And that's where I think the car alarm probably is located. But I don't have time to go look at it now, so that's going to be a chore for tomorrow. For the rest of today, it's time to work on the BMW. The M5 sprung a leak. I'll show you all about it. I got to pack up some tools, head to the dealership, get parts, go back to my house, and we'll start working on it. All right, back home, got the hood popped on the M5, and we need to replace a coolant line. Chelsea came home a few days ago and said that the check coolant light went on, so we topped her off and we were checking it out. And this hose right here, this upper hose that runs into that very, very sketchy, tight-looking space down there, had a slit in it right here in the corner. Very strange place to have it, but a total, like, it looks like a pretty much a knife cut, and it was just draining fluid out of there. So I got to replace this hose. The main thing that I'm worried about is you can see how far and how buried this thing is in there. It looks like it's under the plenum and under all sorts of other shit. So I don't even know if I can get to this thing, but I gotta at least give it a try. So I'm gonna start by popping this thing off, and then I'll see what that uncovers and what we can get out from there. Well, this is going to be insane. This is the new replacement hose, so this is what the hose attachment looks like, and you can see it's got those metal barbs in there because BMW has these plastic clips that have to pop out. Now when I'm looking at it, it's down there and it basically looks like this. It's kind of sat in there like this, and that's the surface that I see, and I can maybe get something in there to maybe hook onto that, just maybe. That's my only hope, because if not, I mean, we're talking about ripping apart so much of this car to get down in there. It might not even be worth it. I might just cut that hose right there and use a hose connection thing, even though it'd be really bad to cut this new one up too. But you can get a plastic thing that goes in the middle of these two pieces, and then you crimp it down and basically connects two chunks of hoses. I mean, it might be worth it to do that rather than to have to, what, tow this car to my shop and break the whole damn engine down? I mean, Jesus. Must be an hour later, but I finally got it off. Now the clip is still in there somewhere, so I'm gonna have to rescue the clip out of there. I don't need to reuse it, I just need it to not be hanging out in the engine. And then it's as simple as that side on first, that side on second, refill the cooling system, and we should be done. All right, we're all good. The car is just heat cycling. I'm making sure it gets up to temp and letting off any bubbles that are in there. We're not seeing any leaks. Nothing happening down here. So we fixed it. That was a close one. I honestly thought for a while there that I wasn't gonna be able to get that hose off, and then for a second I thought I wouldn't be able to get it back on. So that was a tight one. All right, that's a win on the BMW, and I'm calling it a half a win on the RX7. I feel like now that I've definitely defined that there is an aftermarket alarm system on there, and I've found the wires. We just got to figure out how to eliminate them, and I'm actually really excited to jump back in there tomorrow and do that. And but before that, I think we're gonna head over to Mark's shop in the morning. Maybe. I haven't heard back from him, but I'm hoping that he's gonna have some wires that I can use to replace that transmission wiring, get that sorted out. That's it. It's been a fun day. You guys have to watch my maintenance now that I'm doing daily videos. If anything goes wrong on one of my several cars, you guys will get to see about it. That's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. A huge thanks to our sponsor of this entire series, JDM Buyer. If you're looking to import some JDM parts for your ride, check them out. They have all sorts of great ways to bring over JDM parts straight from Japan, and you get to do the bidding on them yourself if you want. And if you want to import a car like I did with the FD, just head over to their partner company, RB Motoring. A link to both of those is in the description. I'm working on RX7 merchandise. If you have a good idea for some, leave a comment below. I'm thinking about the B is for BRAP, at least some decals, and yeah, we'll see. We'll see what comes out of that. Anyways, thank you guys very much. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.